And this is what really got me geeked out about Amazon was the fact that I could send all 300 of those into FBA, and then I can sit back and just watch them sell.
Hey, welcome back to the Amazing Freedom Show. My name is Nate Slamans, joined as always by Andy Slamans. And today we're going to be talking about, Andy, what you would do in 2022 if you were starting to sell on Amazon. Now it's hard to believe, but I think we're coming on 9 years that you've been selling on Amazon. And so we're going to talk about your progression through those years and what, has changed, what hasn't changed, what you would do differently than when you started. And I'm excited to talk about that. Before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to those who have been following the show the past couple of weeks. We have a new program called the Amazing Freedom Insiders. If you go to amazingfreedom.com, you can sign up for that. We've had several people do that already, several hundred, and really excited for what we're going to be doing with that. It's just going to be a newsletter we're giving out every week. Everything's free. Newsletter. We're going to be giving out some tools that we have developed using in our own brands, both with our private label brand and with our arbitrage activities and with our groups. And then we're also going to be giving people access to our Facebook group, where at the end of the show today, we're going to be going through a couple niches live. We have some analytics that we've pulled up and run, and we'll be showing people how we did that. So go to amazingfreedom.com, sign up to be an insider, which is a brand new program that we're just releasing at the end of 2021 here. So we're excited for that. Andy, looks like you got a new camera setup and background. I like it. How's your week been going so far?
Yeah, it's going really well. I'm going to share this live here to one more group. Yeah, no, it's definitely been eventful. We have a number of things going on with our family. But what I tell everybody is that doing better than I deserve.
So true. Last week, we talked probably too much, almost in a depressing sense, about some of the challenges in 2021, doing better than we deserve still for sure. But you actually, we sent out an email recently where you talked about how 2021 has been rough, but that you're excited for 2022 and kind of connecting with the community again. And I know that's a big deal to you. I know ever since I first started selling back in 2013, 2014, and you got me into it, one of the things you loved so much about selling on Amazon was the community. Maybe just touch on that before we get into what we wanted to talk about today.
I often tell people the organization that I worked at before was very mission-based, and it was helping disadvantaged kids. And so there was a real community there. Previous to that, I worked in church-based organization. Same thing, very mission-based, and just really good people. And I'm just amazed at the Amazon seller community. I don't know if it's because it's a relatively new industry. Folks are just very friendly, very open to sharing best practices. I experienced that early on. I often tell people a huge piece of my success was just being able to connect with these other Amazon sellers and really just be able to share best practices with each other, attend conferences. Early on, I would go to probably 6 to 8 Amazon seller conferences a year. Every single time I would come away enriched. I would come away with more knowledge, and I would come away with more excitement about building the Amazon business. I often tell people, because this can be a bit of a lonely job, because for most Amazon sellers, if you're selling $1 million to $2 million a year, most of them do it out of their house. It is an online business, so you don't have a lot of interaction with people. Your products are being sold to Amazon customers, and so the customer service is really minimal. And so you really have to make an effort to connect, right, with communities and other people in your profession. And thankfully, and I think you would say the same thing, Nate, the folks that we've been able to connect with, it's just phenomenal, and it's really enriched my life.
Yeah, you mentioned customer service. I don't know if those are always the people you want to be connecting with, even if you are doing customer service. We had to do our own customer service for a couple of the first months when we were starting this, our most recent brand that we work on, where we were actually answering the phones ourselves. And all I can say is thank goodness for our 4 full-time customer service representatives that we have now with our brand, because customer service is a rough job at times, depending on your customers and your brand and everything. So yeah, so true. I'm looking forward to that. I know that's the reason you fell in love with Amazon, like you said, as far as all the other benefits that come with it, the money and the freedom and the time freedom, but the community and connecting with that and the lifelong friends that you've made. I'm just thinking of people like Dan and Steve that you basically, are some of your best friends, Gary, Gay, people that we connect with all the time that have come through the Amazon community. I know that's something I'm thankful for.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's what I often tell people when I share with them, what I do. It's still amazing to me. A lot of my son's friends, they think that I'm still like a drug dealer because no one really knows what an e-commerce seller does. You tell them you sell on Amazon and they kind of scratch their head and, they think that you're selling stuff on eBay or, you're flipping sneakers on eBay, which isn't the case, right? So now there are hundreds of thousands of third-party Amazon sellers like you and I who are making a really good living, who are enriching our families, who are building lifelong wealth because of this amazing platform. And so, the more that we can get that message out there for folks who want to become entrepreneurs, who want to possibly leave the 9 to 5 like I did. I felt like I was stuck. That's really what excites us. That's what excites our partners, right? Gay and Gary, they love sharing that message as well. And 8 years later, I'm as a big a believer in selling online as I ever was. When you look at all the business opportunities that are out there and all the money that you have to invest, like if I wanted to own a Subway franchise, right? I have to give them huge franchise fees up front. I have to hire multiple employees. And then the average Subway only gross revenue is 500 to 600,000, right? So that at the end of the day, you're only making 30 to 40,000, which is why they have to own multiple franchises. I know I'm going on a little rabbit trail here, but 8 years into selling on Amazon, I still think hands down, it is the best opportunity if you want to build a multi-million-dollar business with relatively low upfront capital.
Well, I still laugh every time that you tell the story of how you first started selling on Amazon. Your neighbor told you about it, and at first you thought she was trying to get you into some kind of Ponzi scheme, program to do it because it just, in some ways, seemed too good to be true or too simple, right?
Oh, for sure. And it all goes back to the thing that you and I both learned in economics. And for folks here who went to college, if you ever took economics, what Amazon did is they heightened the supply and demand, by being able to supply like those books that she was selling, where she could get them at a library sale for $5 in central Pennsylvania. And somebody on the West Coast in California needed that exact book. They weren't able to get it. So they're willing to pay that $100 for the college textbook. That's basic good business principle, supply and demand.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we often say the reason that, before you even got into talking about Amazon being so involved was number one, you just love the friends and the community, but also because a lot of people come and go and they try Amazon, they try selling online and they fail at it, right? They do it wrong. And so we don't want people part of the amazing freedom community to fail, to be one of those people who make those mistakes. Some of the mistakes that we've made, inevitably you're going to make mistakes along the way, but not give up, right? Stick with it, know that it's still possible and that we can do it. So today we want to talk about in 2022, Andy, as we get into that, what you would do if you were a new seller, if you were starting, or if you were trying to get into Amazon or start a new brand, a business, what you would do. We often talk about, now we have a portfolio of brands and services that does close to 15 million a year, but it wasn't always that way. Obviously, 8-9 years ago when you started from the ground floor and you didn't have capital, you didn't have a ton of resources to get going. And so you basically had to crawl and snowball your way to where you've been able to get to now, right? And that's taken a while, but I want to go through if, the environment has changed, a lot of things have changed. And so a lot of people, number one, it could be easy to think that it's too hard to start selling now, or it worked for Andy back in 2013, 14, but it's, not going to work now. So I just want you to go through, if you were just starting off, and you only had $500, let's put a dollar amount on it, because I think there's always those reasons someone will give why they can't get started because they don't have enough time, capital. I'm sure there's a lot of things we could give, but if you only had $500 and you had finite number of hours in a week, obviously, but what would you do as you get into 2022 to get to where you are now again in a couple years from now?
Yeah, so it's interesting to think about it. If I go back 8 years ago, I would honestly do it the exact same way that I did back then. And, we see it in our group, right? In the Amazon seller tribe with Gay and Gary, where sellers come in and by the end of the year, they're starting to show screenshots where they have $250,000 in sales, $500,000 in sales. We had one couple that came in 12 months. They went from zero to $1 million in sales within 12 months. So if it was me, if I'm starting out again, I'm doing it the exact same way that I did 8 years ago. So I'm taking that 500. I understand that I have a limited amount of capital. Therefore, I have to be very selective in the inventory that I'm going to purchase and flip. And so generally, the best deals on inventory that you're going to get, first, you want to start around your house. And so there are things around your house. And the great thing, a lot of people don't realize this, you can sell used products on Amazon. And a lot of times they sell really well. So if it's a used tool, as long as it's decent and as long as you put it in the right description, you can sell used product on Amazon. In fact, when I first started, I sold a lot of used DVDs. I would go to garage sales. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm just starting around my house and I'm getting that free inventory. So I don't even have to spend the $500 for my first products that I'm going to send in on Amazon or on eBay. So there are some items, again, if you're getting that free inventory, it might be better to sell on eBay. So here's the trade-off, though. When you start out with a low amount of capital like that, it is going to take you more time. You're going to have to create listings on eBay, which is a little more time consuming. You may have to ship those. If you're selling on eBay, you are going to have to ship those direct to customer, right? But the trade-off is your ROI is going to be really good. If you're getting inventory for free or you're getting it at a very low cost, your ROI is going to be really, really good. So that's how I'm starting around my house. Then I'm going to garage sales. So thrift stores are good. However, in 2021, 2022, Goodwill's kind of caught on to the game. And so they are actually pricing their products a little higher now. So it's a little more challenging. Now there's still gold in thrift stores and there's still product that you can flip and there's good opportunity there, but it definitely is a little more challenging than it was 8 years ago. So what I would recommend someone, again, who's starting with 500 is hit up those garage sales, because just like when I have a garage sale at my house, I'm really not trying to make a lot of money. I'm just trying to get rid of all the junk, right, that I have. I'm trying to, liquidate and get it out as fast as I can. So that's where I'm telling people, again, if they start with 500, that's where I would go. I'm hitting garage sales first. I'm also looking at auctions. So every area has local auctions. A lot of times you can find product at auctions sold like in lots that you can get those penny on dollar, and then estate sales. So estate sales is another really good option where you go, if you get there early enough, you can find really good product. And then I'm just progressing up. You got a question?
Yeah. What about, this is a new platform that wasn't around 8 or 9 years ago when you started, Facebook Marketplace. I don't know if you use Marketplace much. My mother-in-law just yesterday went to go get some Legos for my kids. She had her grandkids with her. And then when she got there, the lady who was giving her the Legos for $10, just a lot of Legos, said, "Hey, do you want some more toys? I got some stuff in my garage." And my mother-in-law was like, "All right, I'll check it out." She gave her like 5 more big toys. And she had sold on Amazon previously, my mother-in-law. So she's checking them. And one of them was going even used for over $100 on Amazon. So I mean, that's the cool thing about garage sales and some of these things, like you just mentioned. People aren't really always looking to get money. They're looking to get rid of stuff.
Yep.
My wife is bad about this. She'll just throw stuff away. If she's, like if she just wants a clean house for certain things, like after Christmas when our kids get a bunch of toys, she'll just throw stuff away. So a lot of these people are just trying to clear stuff. So what would be your opinion on a platform like Marketplace, or what used to be basically like Craigslist, right?
I'm super bullish on Marketplace. And I think it's a very underutilized platform. I think there are pockets of people who have figured it out and they're cracking the code. I think Marketplace is going to eventually replace eBay, or at least it is going to become competitive with eBay. I'm going to explain why I think that. Just the other day, I was on Facebook. So on mobile, you got a little icon at the bottom when you're on Facebook. You click it, so Facebook only has, I forget, 4 or 5 icons, right? Like groups, Marketplace, your own wall, home. But on mobile, it's interesting. I think this is very specific. And I'm not sure what their, overall strategy is, but Marketplace is right in the middle. So that tells me Facebook really wants us as Facebook users to go to Marketplace. They have it in such a prominent spot. So I'm on Facebook Marketplace and I like to look, so you can pick the radius, like 20-mile radius, because again, a lot of times folks selling on there locally, they may have good product that you might be able to flip. But I'm on there and I'm looking for Sorel boots. So I need some winter boots, size 11. Scrolling through, I see someone, they have them. They're not the style that I want, but I click on that, right? Sorel. And this is where Facebook and their algorithm, and this is where I think it's going to really come up. Well, wouldn't you know, then the next day I click on Marketplace, all of a sudden I'm seeing all of these Sorel boots, size 11, that ship. So so there's a seller in Denver who has Sorel boots, size 11, and all of a sudden he's showing up in my Facebook Marketplace because he's a seller of boots that I was looking for. So what does that say for you and I as sellers? Well, look, that's a great platform. This guy didn't have to advertise. He spent no money on advertising, right? He's just trying to sell locally, but I think there's a button you can click where if you're willing to ship it, and now all of a sudden he's getting prominent display in my Facebook Marketplace. How cool is that, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people believe that the biggest threat to Amazon is not Walmart or some of these other, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, these other big retailers, but it's the Shopify, Facebook, Instagram, direct to consumer, really direct social connection. TikTok, obviously, eventually, I think if they got a good e-commerce partnership going on, that's going to be the biggest threat to Amazon, because that's the way that you can personalize. Amazon's always been the everything store, but if you can get very similar to your example right there, even more products than Amazon has, basically because of the social, everybody could connect socially and have their own products. I think that could be even bigger of an everything store than Amazon's going to be able to be. So it's going to be really interesting.
I don't even know if Facebook, because I haven't sold anything on there yet. So I don't know if anybody watching here, if you've sold anything. The big knock on Facebook Marketplace is you don't want to have to go meet the person, right? It's kind of a hassle. You don't have to meet them. Well, what if you just, I think you can choose that you're going to only ship the product, right? And so now it really becomes like eBay, where you're not having to meet the customer face to face, even locally. Like if I just wanted to ship it, I could probably do that. Even if it's 10 miles away, you add that into the cost of whatever product you're selling. And so now you've taken away the friction as a seller of having to meet somebody in person. And another way that I've heard people that do it locally, that do meet with people, is they just set an assigned time. So if they're selling this product, they say, hey, look, I meet in this church parking lot every Friday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So, if you want it, you can leave me a deposit and then meet me here at this church parking lot between 4 and 6. So that takes away some of the friction if you don't want to have to meet people all the time locally. But I think the big move here is if Facebook can continue to get users, which I think they will, click in, and then it become a trusted marketplace, because you can rate sellers, just like you can on eBay. So now on Facebook Marketplace, when I click on that item, I can see the seller and I can see their star rating.
Yeah, Etsy definitely started as kind of this similar, I think, feeling of what you were just saying, where Etsy at first is kind of like, hey, who wants to buy these junky handmade products? And then it evolved over time to be a lot more professional and people knew what they were expecting. And now I heard the number the other day, I forget what it is, but how many billions Etsy is worth now, their value, it's pretty insane. So I do think marketplace is something to watch, both for people getting in, looking to hustle and flip and do arbitrage, and also for brand owners, some of these platforms that potentially could be good alternate sales channels to be part of, even if it looks different than Amazon, to be aware of some of the changes that probably will be coming over the next couple of years. We just see how important, number one, we see how tough Amazon is getting in some ways, right, with PPC and everything. So as the competitiveness changes a little bit, the landscape, sellers will start to move to these other platforms where it might be newer. Facebook isn't trying to maximize their revenue yet with marketplace by any means. They're just trying to get the exposure. So definitely something to keep an eye on. So, okay.
Well,
so
it's interesting. Brian Maples just commented here on the video. He said Facebook Marketplace could be huge because they're integrating Facebook Shops with Facebook Marketplace. This means you can bulk upload thousands of items. If you have the links, you can create a shop of thousands of items overnight. All those items will be on Facebook Marketplace. That's a game changer. Yeah, I mean, I think it has huge potential.
Yeah, it's different. So I think that's why we just have to be aware how the changes, what's different than what we're used to selling. But I like the analogy you said of kind of could be the eBay killer or very similar to eBay, because not that many people that I know even go to eBay as much anymore, right? Or it's just declining. In Facebook, lots of people are still on there every day. So yeah, really interesting. Okay, so Andy, you would start at garage sales, thrift shops, you would go to these sales, you would look at marketplace. What do you think your capital looks like starting with that 500 or less, like using those dollars and, over a couple of years, what's your goal to basically snowball that and really keep growing with it and building cash flow and brand equity, all of that?
Yeah. So, this is something that we teach right in the Amazon Seller Tribe, and Gary's so good at it. It's the old adage, do you want a fast nickel or a slow dime? Well, when you're just starting out, right, you want to try to move that money as quick. You want to turn that money as quick as possible. And so, what I'm trying to do is acquire as much of that low cost inventory as I can. And again, utilizing platforms like eBay, like Facebook Marketplace. And then I'm trying to turn it and reinvest it as fast as possible. So again, it's going to take more time because I got to create more listings. And a lot of these items are going to be one-offs, right? They're going to be onesie, twosies type products where you're not going to be able to do multiples. But then I'm advancing and I'm going to start going into retail arbitrage. So for me, what I used to do a lot of 8 years ago is I would do a lot of scratch and dent grocery stores. Yeah. So Dan Whitworth said, don't eat your seed. Yep, absolutely. You got to just keep putting it right back into your business. And this is something, again, that Gary Ray often talks about. You make 12,000 profit, and then you go buy a nice car, right? With that $12,000 profit, you're never going to scale, right? And get to that $1 million level unless you keep reinvesting it. And so, that's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to pump it back into the business as much as I can, trying to utilize the least amount of possible for my actual living needs. So the way I did it back then, and again, if you're just starting with 500, that means you have another job that's providing you income. What we always tell people is you want to stay in that job as long as possible, right? Because you just want to try to keep snowballing all your profit back into that business. And I'm going to try to build it again, just like I did back in 2013, 2014, where I can get to that, I say about a $70,000 to $75,000 a month level is when I'll start then taking some profits out. Going by the typical book, right? Profit first. I'm going to start taking some of those out, not necessarily to live on, but to set them aside, then to start building my own brand. Because I think you would agree, Nate, for us, we think the pinnacle is being able to eventually build your own brand, which is going to have some value.
Yeah, and I do want to give a shout out to Mary, to Dan, to Brian, others who are watching. And we talked about Dan a lot last week, so I don't think we'll harp on that again. But Dan did, I think, exactly what you're talking about. Now, maybe over a longer time frame, we talked about how Dan's been selling for 20 plus years, but what he's been able to do by building that cash flow machine and then build a brand where he's getting that equity. So I think that definitely is there. Now, Andy, when you I think we just talked about this the other day. When your first year on Amazon, you did 120,000. The second year 400 plus thousand. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, 420,000.
420,000. And it was actually May of 2014 then. So just after 2 years that you decided to go full time on Amazon. So maybe walk me through that. So if you're starting with 500, you could maybe get to 100,000 plus, or, it could be a lot more. We have someone in our group, like you said, who did $1 million in their first year. Now we don't know how much money they started with. So I'm guessing maybe more than 500 seed capital, or they had a good credit card limit to be able to flip. But if you were to start again, would you have left your job again at that point? What would your recommendation be there?
Yeah. So I actually worked at another job. So for 18 months, I was working full-time another job and then just building my Amazon business on the side. And I was doing everything myself. So I was doing, all the purchasing of the inventory, all the packing, all the prepping. I would occasionally hire like high school kids to work 2 or 3 hours to help me prep. But I was doing everything myself, again, because I wanted to maximize, right, my return. I want to maximize my ROI. And those are really intensive days, because a lot of the products I was purchasing needed bundling. I remember one of my first products, they were these little meal water drink enhancers. And so, I would buy them at a scratch and dent grocery store. And then I would have to like bundle those and basically make them bomb proof for Amazon FBA, because as we know, there's so many touch points at Amazon. It's not like typical retail. And I didn't want those getting shipped into Amazon FBA and then the UPS or the FedEx guys or the Amazon warehouse workers, right, spilling them all over. And so I would wrap those things multiple times. In fact, we would often joke about it. Like when the customer got it, they must think like, man, whoever the seller is, they're crazy because I can barely open these up. So those were some of my early flips, very intensive, but the ROI was good. That's what got me to that $120,000 mark. But then I started to get those buys where you could buy multiples. So this is where I think you really start to progress and you can really scale as an Amazon seller when you identify products. Like one of my first ones was the Mater bubble blower mower. So I went to all the local Boss Cobbs in my region. So that's what happens when you find those products that are regional. You start to clear the shelves out at all those stores. And so at the time, I think I had an Acura MDX, and those bubble blowers are pretty big. And every store, I would just fill up my truck, right? I would clean them out, go to the next store. So every store in the region, I think I probably ended up with about 300 Mater bubble blower mowers, and boom, able to send those in. So that's the great thing, right? When you start to scale, your business starts to generate that kind of cash flow. Then the onesie twosie products that built your business now become 300 units. And this is what really got me geeked out about Amazon, was the fact that I could send all 300 of those into FBA, and then I can sit back and just watch them sell, right? So that was like right before Christmas. And that's the beautiful thing. And that's right. That's the level that you want to get to, where you can send those multiple products on. I remember another one. This is when Toys R Us used to be a store. And hopefully I've heard of rumbling that they'll come back in business. But one of the early buys that I had, and this was an online arbitrage buy, were these Dippin' Dot makers. So they did like a summer sale. So Dippin' Dots, they probably, it was starting to go down. So Toys R Us was clearancing them out. And I think I bought about 200 to 250. These were a little larger too. They shipped right to my house, right? The reviews on them were awful. So, and this is another thing on Amazon, just be aware of this. You can have a product and it was like 2.5-star reviews, and you might think, man, I don't want to risk that. But for whatever reason, customers still wanted to buy it, right? So great deal, went in deep. And then just like the Mater bubble blower mowers, that's really when you can start to scale up. And then that's when you start to get to that 60, 75,000, and it takes less work and less effort. When I was doing online and retail arbitrage, I got to the point where I wouldn't buy a product anymore unless I could get 20 or more, because as long as I got 20 or more, they were going to send it to the same fulfillment center. So, I think that's the goal, right? You can start out again, if you're 500, getting those onesie twosies, but you want to get to that point where you can send in multiple products.
Yeah, I can still remember back. It seems so long ago now, but just trying to get the right box configuration to get like 2 items of this and 3 in this in the Home Depot box. It seems like forever
the
ago now.
Frankenstein box.
Yeah. Now that we just send in pallets and pallets of stuff, it seems so long ago. I also remember being in my parents' basement, and one of my replens was Dawn dish soap. And I would pack up like 50 pounds, like 49 pounds worth of the box. I have to carry it up these wooden slippery steps to the front porch. I just remember the UPS guy would ask my mom, what are you sending places? After a while, he was so frustrated with this, but good.
Well, that amazes me too. Like Gary posts, usually about once a week, he'll post in the Amazon Seller Tribe, like, who would have ever thought that I would be selling this, on Amazon. And they're just these bizarre products that you would never think would be profitable or flippable.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. There's entire memes dedicated to the expertise that sellers have in bras and whatever, right? That they never thought they would. I want to say hello to Brian again in Sabir. And Brian had a couple questions that I think were good. I do want to hit those quick, Andy. Before we get to that, though, I'm going to let
you hit them. I'm going to use the bathroom real fast.
Okay. Yeah, let me hit those. So, Brian, a couple questions. You said, do you use a warehouse at some point to prep your RA, OA items for FBA once you reach a certain size and goal? Number one, yes, you definitely can. However, I will caution you to say, I think that most people do not realize how much can be done from a small space for arbitrage prepping, and it actually goes for private label as well. So my first container of private label I delivered to my house, and yes, my garage was filled up for an entire winter time frame and into the summer, but I was able to do it without getting that overhead expense of paying $1,000+ a month of warehouse space. And there's entire like lean methodology around having prep centers out of just your garage, out of your living room, out of a basement, where even with a 500 square foot space, you can really hit a lot of volume. I forget the numbers that Gary and other people in our tribe group recommends, but even usually a lot of sellers say until you hit about $1 million of revenue, or probably more accurately is a number of units that you're sending to Amazon per month, you really shouldn't need so much space. And part of the reason Gay Lisby says this all the time is that you should be doing out the door in 24. And what that means is that you are getting all of your products out within 24 hours. So if you purchase products arbitrage before you make that next purchase, if you haven't prepped it and sent it to Amazon, don't buy more. And so if you're shipping out the door in 24 every single day, you really shouldn't fill up so much space. Most of your products should be at FBA, and then it should be flipping fast. So I would say don't worry about the space until you hit a certain level, unless you're obviously in a location that just has zero space. Number two, do you recommend a Repricer software? I don't have a super high level recommendation. I've used Be Cool. I've used the Aurora. They're both good. Seller Snap, I think, is a new one that's good. A little bit more pricey, though. I think it's recommended for larger sellers. So any of those are good. And then the third question Brian had was about IP complaints. So as a private label seller, we don't deal with IP complaints a lot. However, Andy, we did just recently, within the last 2 weeks, get an IP complaint that we had to send a counterclaim, a DMCA, I forget how they say it, counterclaim, where we had to basically swear that we were not violating this IP complaint. So it does happen even in brand building, and if you're not careful, but it happens a lot for arbitrage sellers. I'm not going to get into the ins and outs. I will say that in the Amazon Seller Tribe, Brian, our group, Gay Lisby Gary, has a lot of recommendations of how to deal with IP complaints. They've gotten hundreds of them, and they've gotten most of them removed through the methods that they use. So it's definitely one of those scary things that holds some people back, but actually is very, I don't know if easy is the right word, but there is a way to overcome these IP complaints, and it shouldn't hold people back. So yeah, I think those were great questions about arbitrage. So Andy, before we finish off this discussion on what you would do in 2022, I really want to know, for those who maybe have been on this path that you've already been talking about, flipping and going, getting into arbitrage and doing marketplace or auctions or whatever it is, right? And they're building up this capital, and maybe they are getting to that 50,000 or 75,000 a month level, or they're just ready to kind of get to the next level. When, how do you decide how much money to drop on your first brand product that you're going to be doing? Is it Is it $5,000? Is it $10,000? How do you make that decision? And how do you make it as a decision as a percentage of basically your capital that's available? Because you probably don't want to put all your eggs in that one basket where if that product fails that you're wiped out, right? So how do you go through that thought process?
Yeah, so that's going to be a typical lawyer answer. It depends. It really does depend on where you're at as an entrepreneur, what your risk tolerance is. For us, I think that you and I would both say that our strategy has changed from when we first started launching products back in 2014, 2015, where we would order literally thousands of units for the first order. And so we've evolved where we're doing a lot more testing, at lower quantities. So it requires less capital. But just part of the equation, because that would be like a whole nother podcast. Some of the things I think that you need to think about when you are going to launch. And now we're talking about specifically like a private label product. My first private label product, they were silicone spatula sets, which, by the way, I set the promo code up wrong. This was back in 2014, and I lost over $10,000 within like 2 hours. Back then, you could do promo codes, but it was a very simple product, silicone spatula set. I ordered 1,000 units. I would never do that today. I would test. And so, because you need to think about marketing expense. If someone's buying a product, I would say probably 40% of your capital needs to go to purchasing inventory, another 30 to 40 to marketing, and then another 20 that you're going to use for various other expenses involved in launching a product in Amazon. Whereas you and I, probably back in 2014, we were doing 80% on inventory and then 20% everything else. So those are some of the things that you need to think about. But again, I think testing is really a great way to go. Whether you're buying the product that's similar on Etsy, maybe you see something on Etsy that's similar to what's on Amazon, but it's not the exact same. This is the niche you want to get into. You may want to just buy 20 units, throw it on Amazon and see what happens. You can get in the game at a lot lower cost.
If you're going in 2022, any difference in your mindset as far as getting products from China, just given the, the challenges of shipping, logistics, COVID, everything that's going on? Are you still looking to China? Are you looking anywhere else? What should people be thinking as they maybe get into their first products heading into the new year?
For sure, China is you're going to get the lowest price product in China. They have the smoothest systems, when it comes to getting your sample. They just understand commerce. So yeah, China is still the number one place to go. To get creative though, I think, and this is what you and I have done over the last year and a half, we began to identify suppliers domestically here in the US. And I think we're doing a really good job of that because it just makes those supply chain issues so much easier. You're also dealing with, you don't have to pay for the product up front. You have terms. Oftentimes in China, it's difficult getting terms, for your inventory. So yeah, China is still the best place. Alibaba, AliExpress, the other websites, that's where you want to go. Again, you always want to try to go for a low MOQ and then try to branch out and find suppliers domestically.
Yeah. So if you were to start in 2022, you are with $500, you're going to garage sales, to thrift stores, maybe, but you prefer garage sales, marketplace, auctions, estate. Then you're getting into retail arbitrage, online arbitrage as soon as you can. And then you're looking to set that money aside to building your own brand where you can get some equity and be able to send in products to Amazon without as much day-to-day looking and searching for the next product opportunity. And I mean, what are you seeing as far as, is there any, so most of this sounds pretty similar to your path already. I mean, that's how you start off. You said that you wouldn't do much different. Is there any major difference or anything new that else you would add that you would do differently than what you did in the past?
I think we just want to throw in there too, when you get to that level, and again, I'm not sure what it would be, but probably $60,000 to $75,000 level, you are going to have to hire at the minimum part-time help in order for you to scale up more. As a seller, I can probably hit that $700,000 a year mark if I'm doing everything myself. But you and I both know that in order to scale, in order to make this a living where it's really good, you need to hit that million, 500,000 if you're dependent on this as a full-time job. And the way that you're going to do that is you're going to have to hire team members. And so whether that's multiple part-time help who are going to help you do the prepping, the packing, the shipping, or whether that's part-time help that's helping you do the purchasing, retail arbitrage or online arbitrage, that has to be in the mix. So, just understand that at some point, right? As the owner, as the CEO, you are going to have to manage employees. That's the only way you're going to be able to scale.
Yeah. And I want to give a shout out to Kyle and Sphere again. And I'm actually reading a book right now that Nate Slusher recommended to me. Nate Slusher, a prolific reader. And the book is called Who, Not How. And it's basically the premise is not to ask how you can get to $1 million or $10 million, but who can help you get there getting the right team members onto your team and the right connections and relationships to get you to the goals that you have. So I would say the one thing I would probably do in hindsight, looking back, is given the opportunity that we've seen, and I think we'll continue to see with e-commerce online selling, is just echoing what you just said. I would build a team faster. I would, if I wasn't relying on the capital to live day to day, which, your recommendation was try not to do that, try to keep it in there, the seed money, try to work that other job. I would then hire other people at your house. Actually, I talked to someone that is in the Amazon seller tribe. He's a full-time engineer, and I believe he was doing $2 to $3 million. He'll have done this year on Amazon, and he's not doing it full-time. He's a full-time engineer working a 9 to 5, and he's got a team. I think he said around 5 people that are doing the arbitrage finding and selling. And so, he's definitely taking that to heart. He's now saying that he's looking to leave his job because he thinks he can, 5x that even more. But he's gotten to the $2-3 million mark without putting in by any means full-time hours. He said very part-time hours. So it's exciting to see people who are using the team mentality, hiring other people to get to their goals.
Well, and I think that's what you and I would say we've learned so much from Gary, who has a full-time income, right, from his insurance business. And now he's created this amazing Amazon, primarily online arbitrage business. And he doesn't touch the product himself, but he's built a phenomenal team of buyers and preppers, packers and shippers. And I think in 2021, he's doing like $2.5 to $3 million in sales, which is it's amazing. And he's been able to do that, right, because he is a phenomenal team builder.
Yeah, definitely been inspiring to see how he's been able to create these multiple streams of income, and not passive by any means. And he would never say it's passive, but way that he's been able to delegate very masterfully. So before we get into the part of the show, Andy, where we're going to be diving into a couple niches and going through our product decision-making and competition and PPC and the data and the keywords and the market analysis, all that, I want to hit just a couple of things that we see going on as we head into the new year. So a couple of our factories are definitely closing down around January 15th. Some later. It's interesting over the last couple of years, just seeing the different factories basically closing at different times. But this year, definitely mid-January to the end of January is when it seems like all production will be stopping in China. So if this is your first time working with China and you weren't aware that they basically take 3 to 4 weeks off to travel and do Chinese New Year, it's very difficult to get products made in China late January into early February. So we're definitely seeing that across our factories, and we've been having to plan our orders to get shipped out basically this next week. But we were already stocked pretty good, so we don't have anything now that will be coming to our warehouse until basically late March, early April. And that's just because once it gets made and then shipped after Chinese New Year, we've had to plan for that. So our warehouse is actually pretty full right now, planning for the springtime, because we had to basically plan for these couple months of Chinese New Year off. So that's something to be aware of. I also wanted to mention that in January, for a long time, we've called it Returnuary, right? That's kind of a running Amazon joke where if you are a Q4 heavy business, obviously you can expect a higher than normal amount of returns. Typically in January, Amazon actually allows any purchases from October 1st through December 31st to be able to be returned through January 31st. I believe I got those dates right. So just expect that our return rate typically is a little bit higher, especially if your sales decline as a percentage. It seems to be extra high because you sold more in December, perhaps. However, in our experience, it doesn't get crazy. It's still like within the normal kind of retail means, depending on what products you're selling. So just something to be aware of. And then I also want to mention just some exciting things going on with both the Amazon Seller Tribe and AMZ Pro. So we actually just had one case with AMZ Pro. So if you don't know AMZ Pro, you can go to amazingfreedom.com or amzprofessional.com and check that out. We had a new client just this last week who we signed up, and within the first week got $3,500 in reimbursements between their FBA shipments and their normal inventory reconciliation back within the first week. So that was really exciting. That person sent us an email personally thanking us for the help because it was such a big dollar amount that they weren't expecting kind of to finish the year. So that was really exciting. And what I want to say about that is if you haven't done your Amazon reimbursements in a while, January is the perfect time to do that because you just went through Q4. Things are messy at the warehouse. Amazon loses a bunch of stuff. FBA shipments get, lost, damaged, misplaced, whatever Amazon does with them. In January, February is the perfect time to be doing that. And a lot of sellers forget that you only have so long to get your Amazon reimbursements back before they're gone forever, which is, we often talk about how dirty it kind of is in a way, right? That Amazon can do that even, but in some cases it's 18 months you have, but for certain reimbursements, it's only 6 months or less time that you have to tell Amazon that they need to give you your money or it's gone. They say, hey, we keep it forever. And it just adds to their bottom line and takes away from your bottom line. Okay. So every single month in our own private label business, we get between 1% to 3%, 3% of our total revenue typically as reimbursements, which is huge, right? That's 1% to 3% of your profit margin through the year that you could be losing because you're not properly managing your reimbursement. So I just encourage everybody to go to our website, amazingfreedom.com. We don't do a percent fee model. We just have a flat rate model where you just pay a flat monthly fee to us, no matter, even if we get, so this person that we got $3,500 back their first week, they paid the same amount of money as someone who would get $15,000 back or $50,000. We've had some AMZ Pro members get $50,000 to $100,000 over the lifetime of using AMZ Pro just because of all the stuff that goes on with FBA. So just make sure you're handling that. And I also wanted to mention Amazon Seller Tribe. I love this time of year with Amazon Seller Tribe because we're finishing off Q4 and the testimonials that come through. I mean, don't they blow you away, Andy? Just like to see the number of people that become what we call gold lanyard sellers or hit their $1 million mark for the first time.
Yeah. So, for folks that are listening, we have this big, hairy, audacious goal of being able to reach 1 million people and help them sell $1 million online. And that's Gay Lisby, Gary Ray, who are just amazing teachers, amazing coaches, amazing Amazon sellers. And the amount of sellers in that group posting screenshots of hitting new records of 250,000, 500,000, 750,000, 1 million, it almost happens on a daily basis. So super exciting. Love the energy and the enthusiasm in that group. And just excited to see as that group continues to grow, because I think you and I both say, like, look, we've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and we want to make sure that we can share whatever kind of knowledge, just like folks shared with me early on when I started, whatever kind of knowledge we can share with people, we want to disseminate that to help them grow and navigate through some of the pitfalls of selling on Amazon.
Yeah. So I said this before, but definitely encourage anybody who hasn't yet to go to amazingfreedom.com. Sign up for our new program called the Amazing Freedom Insiders. It's free. It's just a way for us to get you information in a regular newsletter, to be part of our insider community on Facebook, and to get some of the new tools we're releasing that we developed building our own brand, that the Amazon Seller Tribe helped develop some of these tools. So we're really excited about that. Thank you for those who have already signed up and sent us words of encouragement. It definitely always means a lot to us when we get a personal message or some kind of review on iTunes or just on Facebook or wherever it is. It really means a lot to us to get that personal encouragement, even just an email or a message. We appreciate that for sure. So yeah, Andy, you said it already. A lot of people do e-commerce, do Amazon wrong. We don't want our listeners to be one of those people. So make sure that you're joining us regularly each week as we talk about what we've done to get to this point, how we've built this portfolio of $15 million in brands and services, and what we're planning to do into the future. And if you're joining us for the Amazing Freedom Podcast, I want to encourage you to become an Amazing Freedom Insider. And otherwise, we'll catch you on the next episode of the Amazing Freedom Podcast.